was draining the swamp like he was supposed to. Instead, we're just paying another tax for the swamp to keep growing. Let's listen to what he said.
I was under the impression at one time that the money when there was a tax on such and such country, that they paid the tariffs, and that's why they didn't like it. But no, that isn't the case. And evidently, what happens is the people in this country that imports the goods and services, they pay the tariff. So the companies in America pay the taxes, and individuals can pay the taxes. And it's always called a tariff, not a tax. But literally, what happens to the money when we collect it, because Trump is bragging about all this money we're putting in the bank, but the money's coming out of the pockets of our corporations. And I think this is a solution, to our problem.
My problem with the tariffs is more of a big picture problem. It's
Heather,
undeniable that Donald Trump was
you've
elected
completely forgotten
to
what you're
shrink
doing.
the size of government, the swamp, the whole deal. And at first, it really looked like it was happening with Doge. They were ripping through
Good
the government.
evening. I got banned for TikTok for until my appeal goes through.
We were
They said that I was
attributing
performing
this
sexual
administration.
activities on
But then all of
camera.
a sudden, it was a hard stop.
So I got banned for that.
And then Elon was given a key.
And it showed the event, the clip, and it was literally me eating Hershey's Kisses. So maybe all those kisses.
Racking up deficits.
Yep, let's let AI control our lives, folks.
It didn't even scratch the surface.
Just wait till the politicians are replaced with AI, and you can't voice your opinion anymore to them.
It's not shrinking, it's expanding. That's deficits. And Americans.
So I mean, I'm sure that my appeal will work. I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm not even remotely worried.
We have tariffs now. If President Trump kept,
I got banned yesterday for the same thing, and I got immediately reinstated. So
we could swallow it, with our and swallow our pride, even if you're against the tariffs. But it's not. It's not. He just added another tariff, and like you said, Dr. Paul, the Americans are paying it, and he's bragging about all the money that's coming in. Yeah, he's taking our tax money. That's nothing he's bragging about. That's not what we wanted. So, wrong direction, and we're not fans of tariffs. But if he was going in the right direction, we could at least, stomach it.
So that's Ron Paul falling off the Trump wagon, saying that he's doing the exact opposite. He's expanding government, which he is. And, he's supposed to come in and make government smaller. It's bigger government, and it's authoritarian. And you're not supposed to
make Israel greater again.
That's right. Yeah. So that's wild to see. I mean, what he said, tariffs would be easier to stomach if President Trump was draining the swamp like he was supposed to. Instead, we're just paying for another tax for the swamp to keep growing.
There's more than one faction of swamp. And swamp was a bad metaphor because the swamps are actually vital to the ecosystem.
Yeah.
This is not something vital to the ecosystem. Okay, this doesn't purify our water. It actually poisons your water.
Can you look up what was the Pentagon budget for 2024, 25? What was it? Let's see, let me ask, sorry.
Not enough. That's all I know, Jimmy.
What was the Pentagon budget for 2024?
is there a window open or something? Mosquitoes are gaining access.
I have $886.3 billion for 2024. The U.S. Defense.
I have from Grok $816.7 billion, which is close.
Oh, pretty close. Why don't they have the same answer?
That's weird, but of course they won't tell you.
Pentagon budget for 2025 looks like it might be
it's $1 trillion.
$831.3 billion.
Okay, but so the new one going forward that they just signed, the big beautiful bill, I guess that'll be for next year.
Ever gonna change to the blue so that I can
so if they were taking that money,
this.
Instead of spending that extra $200
This
billion
might be my
and
last,
giving it right
second
to
to my last
pockets
round. We'll
of
see.
the billionaire oligarchs that actually run it, because that's what that is. Imagine
Did
if
I
they
tell
took
you guys
that
I'm
200
making a
million and
baby
spent it in-
blanket for a friend of mine who had a
the top
surprise
100
baby?
cities in America got $2 billion to build housing, clean up homelessness, build parks.
I just got a phone
schools,
call literally like
libraries,
5 days ago
drug
that
treatment
was a.
facilities. $2 billion.
She's like, hey, look what I made. And it was a picture of a fucking baby.
Imagine
And I
if
was
they
like,
did
wait,
that.
what?
We could have nice things, but it just shows you that your vote doesn't count because the people who are actually running the country are doing what all oligarchies do is they drain the wealth from the country and put it in their pockets, and they don't care if the country collapses because they're billionaires. They don't care. They don't care. As George Carlin said 30 years ago, they don't give an F about you. They don't care. And they're coming for your Social Security. And they're going to get it. Okay. I mean, $1 trillion in debt every 5 months. Even the head of the Fed, Jerome Powell, is like, hey, we got to do something. And they're not doing anything. Trump is spending like a Democrat. Even Ron Paul's calling out. Come see us on tour in Rutherford, New Jersey, New York, Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, Appleton, Wisconsin, Rosemont, Chicago, Louisville, Kentucky, and Fort Wayne, Indiana. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.
No. Actually, why? You know what the elephant in the room for me is? Where's her bits? Since it's so lucrative, why she ain't got her bits out? Bonnie Blue's mom takes a 2,000. She could make £1 million a month doing that. Why she ain't? She said you'd lose all your morals. You'd lose all your morals. They'd go out the window. That's not true. It's not true. A lot of people that can make £1 million. A lot of people a lot prettier than Bonnie Blue. For as far as this is concerned, she was a beautiful girl until she was whatever she did. I think it was when she allowed the demon to possess her. Now she looks kind of like a Jekyll Hyde demon clown. And it's grotesque what this woman has done. However, it is important to me that we start with the team. We start with the mom. Everybody's on payroll. Everybody's on payroll.
So I got banned for performing sexual activities.
It was funny because New Year's Eve, they had, my family came over and I was in the living room filming and they all had to be really, really quiet. And they were just like, when can we put the music on or when can we start moving? And I was just in the next room myself and they're just waiting in silence next door.
And so the mom's like just encouraging it and she's proud of it. The dad, unsurprisingly, not seen anywhere in the picture, unsurprisingly. However, we're told, allegedly, he's proud of her too.
What does your dad say about it? Honestly, he
Yep.
loves it. Like, obviously, he doesn't sit watching the videos, but like, all my social media, my TikToks, he'll have a look at. And he's just proud seeing how happy I am, how much I've been able to support the family. And it's like, it's really changed my life and my family's life. I've got these stamps and it says like, I slept with Bonnie Blue, I want to sleep with Bonnie Blue and stuff. And like, I was practicing them on my dad, and my dad was like, I need to go to the pub after this. And he's got like stamps all of his arms to say he slept with his daughter.
He didn't bother appearing in the documentary, for the record. Then there's her husband. We're introduced to the man as her husband, Bonnie's husband. And the documentary goes, like half the documentary goes by. Before, I don't know how much exactly, but like a lot of it goes by before it's like this guy just pops on the screen and it's like, Bonnie's husband. And it's like, what? When were you gonna get to that? She's a husband? But then when you read about Bonnie Blue anywhere else in the world, it's like her ex-husband. But he's on the payroll too, apparently. He's been very supportive. Beyond supportive. And he's like doing an interview. He's like, well, it's not like I wanted to pimp her out, but the money was good. And I'm like, what in the Adam Grant Mason hell? You get out there and do round two with Jason Love because we got bills to pay, baby girl. Anyway, there's this guy, Josh. He's like a right-hand guy or whatever. He's like, we are on track to break the world record. Who is we? And that starts to bring back into focus, you know, at any time that one of these adult stars wants to say no to something that so much money and time has gone into, who pays for it if they say no? Who's out of a job? Who's out of a gig? Who's out of a this? Who's out of a that? All these people that traveled. It's perverse incentives and interests conflicting, in my opinion. Now, to hear her tell it, though, y'all, I will let you know, to hear her tell it, everything's all fine and good. She loves it. Okay, so.
It was like Christmas Day on repeat for me. I loved it.
That's what she says. The event occurs, or whatever, and Josh assures everybody, this Josh guy, assures everybody that Bonnie has no trauma. There's no trauma from the 1,057. And I'm not going to even describe the event. I mean, use your imagination or don't, actually.
Heather.
But it was nasty. It's just nasty. Like, anybody that I've seen reacting to it and talking about it is like, it's just so grotesque. I mean, there was huge backlash to this whole thing. So in the meantime, Bonnie, who had no trauma from this event, according to this Josh, creative director, he's the creative director. And then the castle, they do it in like this castle. It's like, okay, what in the Andre Gide, middle of nowhere, Black Forest hell? And it's got all the beautiful gold frames and things, and it's like, no, it's just disgusting. Like, no matter how many times she's like, I love it, and this is, I love it, it's like, I don't believe it. I can't believe it. There's no way. And if she does, something's seriously wrong with her. But I truly believe it's the demon speaking. After that, the event occurs, social media erupts, but this documentarian, she lost track of Bonnie. You remember with the Lily Phillips documentary, the guy with the, I forget his channel name, well, whoever it is. Lily Phillips already did a documentary, there was one like this, and it was very famous. I think the most famous part, infamous, was whenever the aftermath of the event, where there was just rubbish on the floor, the cameraman was gagging because of the smell, and Lily cried and said it's not for the weak girls.
It's not for the weak girls, if I'm honest. It was hard. Sometimes you'd like disassociate and be like, like it's not like normal things at all.
Well, after Bonnie, to hear her say it, she loved it and nothing was wrong with her.
I loved it.
But then once the documentarian caught back up with her, tracks her back down after about 10 days, Bonnie apparently has been sick with the flu for 5 to 6 days, and she says the worst flu she ever had in her life.
5-6 days I've been fed down with flu.
I don't think I ever had the flu in my life, maybe once. People just getting flu all the time. Oh, and at one point she was doing a snow angel on the aftermath. So like in stark contrast to the Lily Phillips crying and saying it's not for the weak girls. In stark contrast, Bonnie Blue laid on the ground, unclothed, or scantily clothed, I think it was no clothes, and was doing a snow angel and said, I've been wanting to do this all day. So I put on here, she's been sick with the flu 5 or 6 days, worst flu of her life. I said flashback to Snow Angel. So she was uncharacteristically silent. You would think she would be using this time to promote or whatever. Well, she couldn't do interviews. She was too sick to do interviews. The publicist ends up planting a story in the UK Sun about the mom who comes get the son out of the line. So it's like they show you on the documentary that they put that story out, and the reason was because they wanted to hype up the event, and Bonnie couldn't do interviews. So she ends up getting not only that video removed from OF, but then she also ends up getting kicked off completely. Like, you can't even be on the platform no more. So then that makes her content get even more extreme. So then she does a series of stunts following this because she's spiraling because she doesn't have her OF anymore. So she ends up doing an 8-hour-long bang bang, okay, but change out the first letter, on OnlyFans with all OF creators. She said that one was the hardest one. That was way harder than the 1,000 Men. It was grueling. Basically, Bonnie just got beat up for a few hours. Remember this guy, Josh? All of a sudden, even though he was the one that was like, okay, she wasn't traumatized by the 1,000 guys. He's looking at her here. He's like, she basically just get beat up for like 8 hours. And it's like all these different creators, and Bonnie's in the cab here, and or the car, wherever, cab, car, whatever, and she's like talking about it, and she's like, yeah, no, that one was like more difficult. It was way more difficult than the 1,000 because it was all these guys trying to compete with each other. They all have, they're in this so-called industry. They're trying to prove a point. They also have, subscription things. I don't know. Okay. So she doesn't look good. I mean, she looks like that one really got her. And still, she was like, whatever. She said this is what she wants. She wants to be pushed to her limits. She wants to know how far she can go before it stops. She was stopped and asked herself many times, am I still okay? Am I still whatever? And I was. So we kept going. But this I wrote in my notes. I'm like, this is where it starts to look like the people who were previously really down with it and even like, oh, she's not traumatized, are starting to look like have faces like this. Like, So then there's like a series of other stunts, and some of these might be the same ones on top of each other. Maybe it was like publicity stunt on top of S stunt or whatever, but this is how I, remembered it. There's another stunt after that 8-hour long one where she said it was harder, and like that's where I started to feel like it's starting to take an extreme turn. And this time it has to do with this younger so-called creator. We will call her Julia. Now, I know exactly nothing about Julia. I don't know anything about the content she creates. I don't know where she came from. I don't know how old she is. Nothing about her other than what I'm about to, show you that and what I saw in this so-called documentary. But this person looks like she can't be older than about 25, and she might be like 18. Okay, so somewhere in that age. I don't know. Maybe we could look it up. She never really watched pornographic content. Okay, this girl, she never watched it. That's what she says. Maybe that's not true. Now, why is she agreeing to do this? That's a great question. I don't really want to get into it, okay? So this is a quote, around 40 to 41 minutes of the documentary quote. She's never really watched, let alone been involved in it. And this is where, like, my sympathy for Bonnie, Blue, Tia starts to kind of shrivel. Because it's like, obviously her parents are nut jobs. Something is seriously satanically wrong with them. And so clearly they think this is totally fine way to like support the whole family. Everybody's in on it. Even the ex-husband, still husband, I don't know, the mom, the dad. But now she's taking people who don't even watch this stuff and making them get involved in it. And she does this. I don't know which clip it is. Is it this one? It looks uncomfortable. Bonnie don't even, usually Bonnie's putting on a good show. Usually Bonnie, like Bonnie doesn't look excited. She actually looks nervous. Maybe the dose hadn't kicked in. So she ends up like in a group setting of SX. I don't know if this girl was just there watching it. I don't know if she was doing anything. I'm not going to look it up and I don't want to know. So like the purpose of this video is not to inform you on the details of that. I'm just looking at what I can see on publicly available stuff where I don't have to look at anything that's behind a paywall, okay? Here's a picture, though, of her face that I took from the documentary. This is from the documentary, okay? Channel 4 documentary that aired in the UK. This girl, look at her. She's clearly distraught. And not only do we have her body language to read, Bonnie said it was her goal. She said she wanted to traumatize and scar this girl, who has, again, I repeat, never even really watched pornography.
I want you to be scarred from it. I'm going to have like therapy on speed. I want you traumatized.
Which, again, she could be, that could be all part of the fantasy. But isn't that freaking sick? Part of the fantasy is that you're really scarring and traumatizing a young, innocent person. Girl, boy, anything, anybody. That is sick. And in this documentary, we're going to talk about a little scene later. One of these actresses, so-called actresses, they do admit it. They admit it and they say, yeah, I do think it is that I look so young. That's what they're into. That's why they like it. Anyway, this poor girl, Julia, she even went on one of those degenerate podcasts and says that she regrets participating in this disgusting scene. And she actually even apologized to the public and to her fans. She said she's scarred. She says, I'm scarred and I'm traumatized. Like, she's like, and this is a public link. Okay, this is public. None of this is OF material content. We're going to put a scrolling disclaimer.
And I do regret it. I'm so traumatized. I was freaking out. Like, if you do see a clip, I'm actually like this the whole time, like.
Anyway, so there's one final disgusting stunt, okay? And it's the last one that I needed to see to know everything I need to know, okay? It's disgusting. And this one was what I was like, okay, I have to tell the people. I have to use my little platform. Maybe none of y'all care, okay? But I'll be damned if I saw this canary in the whole mine and I didn't say
taking
something.
away
Really
someone's
seriously wrong. And there's been a lot of people trying to sound the alarm for a long time.
Like
but this
something
really,
that
honestly,
I really don't understand.
Thank you, Channel 4.
I
want to
protect
now that I'm here,
my son's
I didn't plan to
innocence.
say this, but truly thank you. In a way, Channel 4, maybe you didn't need to really put out all the naked, alive S acts,
like my mom did to me.
Like, you could have blurred some things, I think. However, they really did show and document exactly the pipeline, exactly which types of people can lure these young people. It isn't just young girls, too. There are young
really?
boys,
a hurricane?
Young boys. They don't even have facial hair. These young boys in this so-called degenerate scene. So in this last stunt, Bonnie, again, coming off of that 8-hour-long grueling session where she basically just got beat for 8 hours, I guess she doesn't want to do that kind of thing anymore. She wants to go back to amateurs. So now she's got some amateurs who are actually OnlyFans creators. You know how hard it is to become one of those? You sign up for a freaking account and have some type of ID.
Heather, no.
So they're OF creators, they're amateurs. Most of them have never done anything even close to this ever. In this supposed scene, not only are these people, you know, first timers and amateurs, they all look very young. Most of them are actually very young. And they all dressed up like school children. And they're in a classroom. And Bonnie is at the front of the classroom. That's going to be the scene. Now, this one, thankfully, I gotta say, at least the version of the documentary that I watched did not have any scenes from this shoot. That's what they call it now. But it was troubling and unsettling, truly. I mean, I've honestly tried to put it in the back of my mind, like where I'm not even thinking about it because it's sick. There's like a lot of reading between the lines here because thankfully, and I think that was tasteful, they did not put any scenes, any still shots or anything from once the act started. But you could hear, they did sounds like outside, and they're in a schoolhouse. It's a schoolhouse, a schoolroom. And the Brigitte Macron cosplayer is up at the front. And I keep saying the sick thing. The whole thing's sick. But another sick thing, Bonnie Blue is sitting, explaining. She's like the executive producer, I guess. She's sitting with her legs spread eagle on a desk, explaining how it's going to go. And she's using like the most vulgar language. And then it shoots to these children. You know, one of them said she was 21. So I guess that's an adult. But God, they look so young. They look young. They know they look young. And they're sitting in a desk, in these little desks, like little school desks. Oh, it's sick. And there's this big muscled up guy, and he's like a corn star actor, and he's gonna be, I guess, doing stuff with these children, these adults. I shouldn't say children, like, you know, I'm not alleging anyone was under age. In fact, I want to say they claim on the documentary everyone's IDs were checked, and they said it on camera, and then people on camera confirmed they're all over 18. So I'm not saying that they're children in the fact of like something, you know, illegal. I do think this probably, like what that was shown on camera, I do think is legal. And that's something we got to kind of come to reckon with as a whole full society. P. Diddy, I believe, largely didn't get held to account for a lot of what he really did do wrong because we have normalized this. It's not illegal, it's legal. If everybody's 18.01 second, what about Lil Tay, who's been obviously groomed into degeneracy since she's before 9, because when she came on the scene at 9 years old, she was already degenerate behavior. And I feel bad for her as a human, as a person. Down in her heart, that's a pure soul somewhere. 18 years old in 1 second, and she started taking customs on OF. Because why? Because people like Bonnie Blue, Lily Phillips, they come out and tell you they're making £1 million a month, and their parents are proud. It must not be nothing wrong with it. I'm here to tell you there's something wrong with it. And it's so wrong that it will eat at you and your soul till there's nothing left of you but a White Walker corpse. I still do feel bad for the Bonnie Blue. I do. Because it's like with parents like that, you got to wonder what they told her right from wrong was what. Some people don't need to be told what's right from wrong. They know. Maybe Bonnie Blue don't. Maybe she didn't. And she's been surrounded now by degenerates who are giving her awards at the Corn Awards. Awards for this. So she has this group, quote, shoot with these young girls dressed as students. And guess what, too? These girls got paid to shoot. No money. You know what their payment was? It was a collaboration. It was going to be the exposure.
Appearing in their socials with Bonnie is payment enough.
Then it just gradually builds up into this like an orgy.
No, I'm not being paid today. It'd just be I get tagged and then hopefully I get followers and subs from that and then it'll roll onto my page.
The payment and the punishment is the same thing. And the thing is, too, like, I think all of us know that one person from the hometown that got caught up in something, maybe consenting, maybe didn't, and there was a tape, there was a video, and it was like, oh, she did a corn. Like, you those people never, ever, ever, ever got to live that down. Now, think about it on this scale. Bonnie Blue is probably doing the right thing for her survival to act like and to like be so separated from reality, because what's gonna happen the first moment she decides she really don't want to do this no more? Who's gonna marry Bonnie Blue? Some sick that's into this stuff? No, that's a marriage like Adam and Lena have. They interview these young adults off to the side, the group scene, and they like, one of them's like basically crying. Beautiful, precious, little angel face. Now, some of them are like, oh, I'm just watching. I'm just going to watch in the scene. And the big dude, and who's going to be watching? Who's going to be? And it's the same guy that's going to be, I think, in the scene. I didn't watch it, obviously. I did not watch it. So I don't know if he is in it, but he's like kind of like contemplating, going back and forth. He's like, well, I mean, they say it's definitely not in my comfort zone or whatever, out of my normal thing. But they say they're all on it, OnlyFans creators, and they're all 18, so.
Pushing the boundaries a little bit for me. It's a bit out of my comfort zone. Well, I'm here. Everybody's operating, and I've checked all their IDs and stuff, and everybody's content creator, so.
And it's like, it sucked because it was like, for a moment, that spark of that right thing was roaring in that man. He knew it was something wrong with it. I guess he carried through, followed through, and did it anyway. Then you have Bonnie herself sitting spread eagle on the desk explaining to the kids, the young adults, with the vulgar terminology, and then they interview these young adults one by one, and one of them's like, all of them that they interviewed never had done this before on camera with like a S-act on camera. Some of them had, but it was just their self with a so-called alleged toy. Some of them were like undecided if they were just gonna watch. Just come in, you can just watch. And then they get there and they're like, oh, well, Bonnie Blue is here and this could be a huge opportunity, so I might as well just do it. Oh, you're just watch? Okay. And then he's like, don't just say you're gonna do it because you're in the room. You're like, you're allowed to say no. And it's like, what a freaking messed up situation. Like, technically, yeah, I mean, they're saying the right things and stuff. It's like, yeah, he's saying you're allowed to say no. Don't just say no. And that's true. And I think somewhere deep down, even in that guy, there's some spark of what, like, something's like, let me make sure I tell him. But it's like, that's not enough. That's not enough. If anybody's asking my opinion, what needed to happen was that man, when he had that feeling of like, this isn't normally my thing, but like, they're all 18, they're all OF creators, what would have been, I believe, the right thing to do was to say, I'm out. But how can I judge him for that? Because I never had a whole set waiting on me to do something. Who knows how pressured he felt? Who's his boss? I don't know the whole economy, okay? But what I'm telling you, just looking at this public documentary for the UK, is something's wrong. These people were crying, like, basically. The interviewer's like, you seem nervous. And this precious little girl with her little bang, she's like, I am. One of them's talking about how she knows that the fans like her because she's so small and she looks underage. The thing that gets me is some of them didn't even know if they were going to do it. Like, that means to me they were maybe hesitant. The fact they never have done it before means they didn't want to do it before. They never did it before. So it's like Bonnie Blue just coming off of getting beat up for 8 hours by people in the industry. All because of what? Because she doesn't want to be bored at a 9-to-5 job? That's something wrong with her. Why does she do this? I mean, money is one answer. The entire family's on the payroll, like we talked about, especially after she started making money. This is kind of the Britney Spears syndrome, where the whole family is gathered around the table talking about what we're going to do. Who's the creative director? Creative director of an S-act. Let's be clear. It's not Bonnie. It's Josh. The mom's saying that anybody would show their bits for £1 million a month. Meanwhile, not showing her bits. Where's her bits? Bonnie prefers the amateurs. That's where it's really real, she says. It's not fake then. It's really real. She said in there, in that freaking disgusting scene, the fact they're nervous is good for her. It's good for the scene. Because sex can be intimidating with a group dressed as school children in a classroom with a woman who just had the flu for 10 days after doing it with 1,057 men. And this is where I really started to wonder whether those predator allegations were true. She only wants to do stuff with very young people or husbands. She wants to do husbands too. But she likes this barely legal. She's like, I like the look in someone's eyes whenever I'm fill in the blank first time, taking their you know what. If a man was saying this, y'all, please. So when people are saying that she's the female Andrew Tate, I mean, it might be in more than one way, not just the shock marketing. And don't, like, the Andrew Tate thing is just right here on the perimeter of this story, too, because Creators Inc. and Ryan Powell now are all in this. Bree Stern dated this guy, Ryan Paul now, who has Plug Talk, or whatever it's called, Talk podcast. He's like, did those parties at the mansions. Adam and Lena would be there, and he's all in with Creators Inc. Creators Inc. follows Bonnie Blue. Creators Inc. Bree Stern. Creators Inc. had all these fashion shows, and then Bonnie Blue, of course, at the end of this documentary, did it, and she flew to Romania to do a podcast with Andrew Tate. And he dragged her for filth. Oh my God, he dragged her. But it's just so hard to fully ever, like, get on board with anything he says because he's just so hateful to women. She also just, I think, is a little mischievous devil clown just for other reasons. Like, she's, like, always trolling or a troll demon possessing the woman. She claims on one side of her mouth that she's good with people doing what works for them. What works for you, you do what works for you, and I'll do what works for me. That's fine. But then on the other side of her mouth, she teases and taunts people, saying the least you could do, women, the least you could do is XYZ S act on your man. She says she likes it whenever the husband husbands show up in her line because it shows that she's doing something that the wives won't do. So that doesn't sound very, you do what you do, I do what I do to me. People will ask her, well, are you know, what do you think that the young example you're setting for the young girls and, you know, even women your age, but she said that what I'm doing, that's none of my business. They're not my responsibility. They're not my problem. But the unfortunate reality is they are. They are. And you can believe in, you know, gravity or not. You can believe that the wind blows or not. And you can believe in karma or not. But what you put out into the world does come back to you. And the Bonnie Blues and the Lily Phillipses, they are absolutely, because they are making international headlines, absolutely causing the normalization and the desensitization, at the very least, of some of the most depraved and deplorable things that a young woman can do, a young man can do. It is just humiliating, just secondhand embarrassment to look at these men, boy, who knows, lined up on the block with these blue disposable face masks because they don't want anybody to see them lining up as one of the 1,000 men. And what's her name? But she loves it.
I loved it.
She likes to rage bait. She has the men wearing the wedding rings. She loved that. She said, if you're a wife, keep scrolling. When a girl says it's her, you know, time of the month, there's nothing wrong with her. It doesn't look like she has any plans to stop anytime soon. And I'm just like, okay, what do we have to do? What do we have to do to just like put a damper on this type of behavior? Because it really sets an example for like the culture, for the children. And you know, I would like to happily announce I've officially entered my full-on anti-era, where I'm like, what's wrong with the youths? What's wrong with the children of today? The issue is, I think this Bonnie Blue isn't that. She's old enough to know. She's old enough to now be the one that's pulling in the grease. She's the one that's screaming now, I think, in my opinion. Innocent until proven guilty, you know, I don't know. But, yeah, that happened, and it was grotesque. It was detestable, and I rebuke. I do not consent, and I rebuke. In the meantime, facts ain't defamation. Neither are opinions. I rebuke. Love you, mean it, okay, bye.
Most people understand that reality shows aren't exactly real, but to dismiss the shows and just say, oh, it's all scripted, it's all fake, that's not exactly true either. You see, these shows operate more like human science experiments than scripted entertainment. Producers aren't necessarily telling contestants what to do, what to say, and how to act, but going through a series of calculated behind-the-scenes steps to control the environment and nearly guarantee chaos on camera. Unfortunately, because these tactics are designed to push people past their breaking point, there have been countless cases where contestants' lives were tragically cut short, with many pointing to the mental and emotional toll these shows have had on them. Today we are going to uncover the step-by-step process reality shows use to psychologically manipulate their contestants into getting the entertainment that they want, and all the ways it has gone horribly wrong. It all starts with the people they cast in the first place, whose personality profiles will naturally clash, ensuring fights and maximizing drama. Even though reality shows can have vastly different premises, most of them follow a similar structure. Bring a group of strangers together, isolate them from the outside world, and then put them through some kind of challenge with real stakes on the line. And whether the final prize is money or love, the production process for maximizing the entertainment value of these shows is mostly the same, and a lot of it relies on morally unethical behavior. Before the cameras turn on, reality shows have an extremely calculated casting process. The first step for getting on many reality shows is a lengthy application, and we're not talking a job application. Shows like Big Brother require IQ and psychological evaluations to ensure contestants will be able to perform under pressure. Survivor is similar, where production goes through 25,000 initial applicants, complete with background and psychological screenings before they're even considered for a callback. One of the reasons why this process takes so long is because producers aren't just looking for good contestants, they're looking for specific characters. Every person on the show has to fit a very specific role. You might have the hero, the villain, the underdog, the heartbreaker, the loudmouth, the wild card. It's like casting for a movie, except the script hasn't been written yet. And usually the most successful shows are when everyone plays their role perfectly. Like in Jersey Shore, Ronnie was the hothead who wanted to start fights. Jenny was the female hothead who wanted to start fights. Snooki was the lovable mess. Mike the Situation was the arrogant loudmouth. Vinny was the laid-back lovable nice guy. Pauly D was the uplifting wingman. You knew exactly what you were going to get from each character, which made the show easier to produce, made the stories easier to write, and fans could easily understand and develop parasocial relationships with the cast. However, during the casting process, what producers are truly looking for are people that exhibit characteristics known as the dark triad. The term dark triad refers to a trio of negative personality traits: narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. Put more simply, they're looking for those who are entitled, lack empathy, and manipulate others. Why? Well, these are the people that create the best drama. A perfect example is Russell Hantz from Survivor. But first, a quick word from today's sponsor, Fume. Flavored air is quickly becoming the leading alternative to vaping and smoking, and today's sponsor, Fume, is leading the charge. Have you ever caught yourself reaching for a bad habit without even thinking about it? Maybe it's out of stress, boredom, or just wanting to fit in? Well, that's where Fume comes in. It's not about quitting, it's about replacing. Fume offers a simple and enjoyable way to break away from bad habits while still having something satisfying to reach for. Fume is a flavored air device that delivers great flavor without any harmful chemicals. Instead of vapor, you just breathe in natural, non-toxic flavors that satisfy the craving.
Right now.
Fume's premium wooden design feels great in your hand, and its magnetic top makes for a great fidget toy. The crisp mint flavor is great. It's refreshing and keeps you feeling sharp throughout the day. But they offer tons of flavors, so there's something for everyone. Over 500,000 people have already made the
Would be beware of me, because I'm not backing down.
Or take Stephen Bear from X on the Beach. He built a persona around seduction, betrayal, and exploiting his relationships for entertainment, but it turns out this was no persona. This was actually who he was in real life. Bear was convicted and jailed for revenge porn after leaking explicit footage of an ex-partner online. He was sentenced to 21 months in prison. Psychologist Pamela B. Rutledge says that the perfect reality TV star and the perfect scammer or con artist have many overlapping traits. Actors, con artists, and scammers all tend to exude energy and have excellent powers of persuasion. The best scammers can project something desirable and likable about themselves to increase perceptions of trust and appear to offer an opportunity with lots of upside while glossing over the risks. And to no surprise, there are literally countless people who were found guilty of financial crimes before or after appearing on reality TV. Jen Shah from The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City was running a telemarketing scam targeting vulnerable, often elderly individuals. Shah pleaded guilty and was later sentenced to 6.5 years in prison and ordered to pay $6.5 million in restitution. Teresa Giudice from The Real Housewives of New Jersey served 11 months in prison after committing multiple acts of financial fraud. Richard Hatch from Survivor was indicted for fraud and tax evasion. Todd and Julie Chrisley were found guilty of both evading taxes and conspiracy to defraud community banks out of more than $30 million to fund their lavish lifestyle. Julie and Todd were sentenced to 7 and 12 years in prison, but lucky for them, another reality star scammer had the power to personally pardon them. If you just Google reality star fraud, you'll get so many different examples that it actually looks like these producers are intentionally trying to cast scammers to be on their show. But show producers have been criticized for not doing enough due diligence to avoid platforming bad or immoral people. Since they go through a deep vetting process, they should know about any potential controversies. Bachelor contestants met with a private investigator who is, quote, trained to dig up any skeletons in the closet, partly to use for their storyline, but also to get ahead of any tabloid stories that could come to the surface if they were on the show. Had they ever been arrested? Had they ever sent nude photos to anyone? Had they ever made an X tape? Had they gotten a DUI? Recently, Love Island cast member Sierra Ortega was removed from season 7 after posts from years ago resurfaced showing her using a racial slur that was historically used to attack Asian people. Outrage erupted online, she was labeled a racist, and fans demanded that she be removed from the show. She announced that she left the show due to a personal situation and then issued an apology online.
I had no ill intention when I was using it, but that's absolutely no excuse because intent doesn't excuse ignorance. It just doesn't.
Sierra also noted in her apology that angry fans called ICE on her family, and she posted a slew of extremely hateful messages and threats she was receiving. To give you an idea of the magnitude of Love Island and this controversy, Sierra's apology video has over 20 million views. Now, some people were confused why this was being treated as a new news story, considering she had publicly addressed and apologized for the use of this slur before she was ever on Love Island. Island, and that raised some conspiracies. Some suggest that producers knew about this controversy before the masses did and actively ignored it. Because if you think about it, Love Island only benefits from Sierra's backlash, as her name is directly tied to the Netflix series. I think it's safe to assume that when it comes to a reality TV show, all publicity is good publicity, right? When Love is Blind faced similar backlash for allegedly platforming bad people, creator Chris Colin defended their vetting process. We have background checks and psychological evaluations. Everyone in the world has a story, and we aren't the police. These shows don't take accountability for the actions of their contestants because, well, realistically, they aren't to blame, but also because they aren't exactly looking for the most morally righteous individuals in the first place. Producers want a perfect mix of unpredictable, toxic, and genuine personalities, which when thrown in a room together for long enough are guaranteed to cause chaos and produce dramatic television. Then again, producers' psychological manipulation tactics can even have genuine people behave differently than they normally would. Sarah Hartshorn, who was cast on America's Next Top Model in 2007, described producers exuding a subtle tactic. Thousands upon thousands sent in audition tapes from all over the country, every single state. We had casting scouts all over looking for candidates, and you guys are the ones who made it. You're here, and it's not just your looks. You all know that being a top model is more than that. It's who you are, and one of you is America's Next Top Model. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. By framing the contestants as chosen and exceptional, producers create a heightened sense of purpose and pressure. It deepens the emotional investment of the cast, making them more willing to endure extreme conditions or humiliation for the sake of not wasting their once-in-a-lifetime shot. It also shifts the power dynamic in favor of the producers. Contestants are no longer just people, they're characters in the producer's story that they feel obligated to live up to. And before ever stepping onto the set, contestants are almost always required to sign strict contracts, often including detailed non-disclosure agreements. Now, it's easy to understand why NDAs are somewhat necessary to prevent the show's ending from being spoiled by bitter contestants, as the episodes were filmed months in advance, but fans have to wait week after week to find out what happens. What they don't realize is sometimes these contracts come with threats. Sarah Hartstone recalls America's Next Top Model producers threatening to sue contestants for $5 million if they leaked any information about the show. The contestants were shook. They thought, we don't have $5 million. The producers replied, we know you don't. We know all about all of your financial information. None of you have $5 million. None of your families have $5 million either. But the NDAs can go even further. They can prohibit contestants from publicly discussing production conditions, mental health struggles during filming, and any manipulative tactics producers use behind the scenes. Take this viral Reddit post from a former reality show contestant, for example. The producers made me go through hell for 4 months. I lost my house, my car, my business, my boyfriend. I was very naive, and they exploited me to the point of a mental breakdown. They used contracts to hold me hostage in a sense, gaslit me every day. I can't even bring myself to discuss what they did, as it's so upsetting to think of, as they used me and I feel so stupid. I'm now living with my parents at 40, too afraid to date or work again, and have overwhelming shame. Now sure, this could just be a random person on the internet making this whole thing up, but this anonymous recount sounds exactly like the countless personal stories I will share throughout this video. So now that producers have acquired a perfect cast of clashing personalities, instilled all of them with a slight god complex, and prevented them from revealing any information about their experience, the next thing to do is manipulate their surroundings, restricting their diet, and implementing borderline torturous tactics to manufacture chaos. And it all starts with 24/7 surveillance. As soon as you wake up in the morning, your mic is put on. When you go to bed, it's taken off. On The Bachelor, contestants sign contracts in which they must agree to be filmed up to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But this may also be by means of hidden cameras and microphones, according to the contract, meaning they're likely going to be caught at some point in a less than positive light. They should have no expectation of privacy. This may seem like an obvious necessity for reality TV to function. After all, the only way they can capture reality is by making sure literally everything is being filmed and recorded. right? Sometimes you see a contestant rip off their microphone and storm off to essentially protest being recorded, but the cameras just follow them anyways, and the audience is excited for more drama. It's a harsh reminder that they literally can never escape. On The Bachelor, constant filming is actually sold as a good part of the experience. Contestants open up about things like anxiety, grief, or past trauma, all while the cameras are rolling 24/7, turning their real pain into a part of the show. The audience is made to believe that all this surveillance is necessary to show someone's journey, because towards the end of the show, there is literally a highlight reel of all of their pain being broadcast to millions of people. And the craziest part is the contestants have no control of how that pain is edited, manufactured, and presented to the world. Surveillance is done by the producers to maintain complete control over their participants. And this anonymous Love Island contestant described the extreme lengths producers would go to.
When you're there, you don't realise how much you are controlled by them. If you talk too much about life outside of the island, the voice of God, which is like a big speaker, will tell you to shut up. So it's like, this doesn't make good telly. Most of your day is just filled with gossiping about situations inside the villa, because that's all you're allowed to talk about.
Another former Love Island contestant described what producers will do to provoke a situation.
They set up the environment to test you because they know exactly what you don't like. They know exactly what you're scared of. They know what you're attracted to, what you're not attracted to. They know your triggers. So it's very easy for them to manipulate your environment and situations to get the best reaction out of you. And especially when the storyline is not going the way that they want, they know exactly how to fix that because they know
Hunger
you
Games.
very well. You're literally just a
Set
little
fire
rat
to
and
the
they're
side of the
experimenting. They're trying
mountain.
to see
Push
what
her
they can
into
change
a
and what
different
they
area.
can do to see how you're going to react and how far they can push you.
Now, beyond surveillance, one of the foundational elements of a successful reality show is keeping the contestants in pure isolation. In Big Brother, contestants are confined to a house with no access to phones, internet, television, or contact with family and friends. This isolation forces them to rely on their relationships within the house, making every alliance, betrayal, and argument feel more intense. Former Bachelor contestant Leslie Hughes said, "We have nothing. We are completely cut off from the world. We have to talk to each other. We have nothing else to do." Similarly, Love Island isolates contestants in a luxurious villa where they have no communication with the outside world. There are no distractions, and they essentially create this artificial bubble where everything on set becomes the only thing that matters to them.
We didn't have any autonomy at all. Not only did they take our phones, they took our wallets, they took our IDs, they took our passports, all in the same instance, without telling us ahead of time this was going to happen. And we were filming 18 to 28 hours a day. The only time we weren't being filmed was when the union crews swapped out for a new crew because they had met their maximum for the day. You never see daylight unless you're allowed to use the bathroom, which is a trailer outside. They keep you in the state where you really have no idea how much time has transpired. It's one of those things where, looking back on it, if someone told me it was a month, I might have believed them.
So what else can they do to cure their boredom? Well, have you ever noticed just how much alcohol is being consumed on reality TV shows? It feels like most of the explosive moments or juicy drama erupts after a night of heavy drinking. Nick Bateman from Big Brother said, "Alcohol was given to us when we were feeling down or depressed or nothing was going on, because obviously alcohol is the Molotov cocktail producers use to liven things up." Bateman says drinks were coveted by contestants because it would quell the boredom of being captive in the house. Bronwyn Wyndham Burke from The Real Housewives of Orange County says that producers took it a step further. Whenever you're filming, they have alcohol there. They ask you before you go on a trip, what kind do you like? They get to know what your favorites are. And while producers don't force you to drink, alcoholic beverages were readily available, and that sometimes during scenes, cast members were discouraged from eating. Jeremy Hartwell, who was a Love is Blind contestant, sued the company alleging that he could not access food and water, but alcohol was available and even encouraged on an empty stomach. Now, it's one thing to give a bunch of partiers some alcohol, but putting restrictions on their diet is just borderline evil. And there's a lot of evidence that supports this tactic. On The Bachelor, contestants are not allowed to eat any food during their dates because the microphones pick up the unpleasant sounds. No one looks good eating, and microphones pick up all kinds of chomping. Now, this seems like a justifiable reason, and even though it sounds messed up, in shows like Survivor or Alone, contestants aren't fed enough to somewhat mimic the simulated reality of survival surviving in the wild. But one could also theorize that low blood sugar could prompt emotional reactions, pushing contestants towards emotional or medical breakdowns. In Mr. Beast games, contestants complained about their food rations. One meal reportedly included a tiny portion of cold oatmeal, one hard-boiled egg, and a few pieces of raw vegetables. They also described going long stretches without being fed by the production. There were times when the production staff gave out small feastable chocolate bars and filmed some people eating and praising the candy. Contestants with food allergies and dietary restrictions struggled more than others. Before the competition, people filled out forms detailing their dietary needs. An FAQ document was provided to contestants in advance of the event and said that all dietary and food restrictions would be taken into consideration. However, several contestants claimed to be served food they were allergic to and that alternatives hadn't been provided. "We were treated horribly," a contestant said. "They took on this challenge of 2,000 competitors. They should have known they needed an enormous crew to handle this correctly. So now the producers have trapped and isolated borderline toxic people who are malnourished and pumped with alcohol. At the very least, a good night's sleep would be their last chance to recalibrate." Well, they don't get that either, because sleep deprivation is one of the most messed up but crucial parts of the reality show entertainment formula.
With Villa Light, there's no clocks. What they was doing was like keeping you up really late, waking you up early, so then you're going to react more because you basically got sleep deprivation.
Most competition reality shows follow a similar daily routine. Wake up early in the morning, typically around 7 a.m. Then they go do their competitions or tasks for the day. Then in the evenings, they talk strategy or socialize with another while getting drunk. Now you have to keep in mind the producer's top priority is to get 45 minutes of watchable television each day. They can count on roughly half of the airtime coming from the actual competitions or tasks, but the other half needs to be the all-too-sweet drama that everyone craves. And if the day is coming to an end and they don't think they have enough, they will keep the contestants awake. For 3 years, Sarah Shapiro worked as a producer on the reality show The Bachelor. Her task, as she recalls it, was to get the contestants to open up and to give them terrible advice and to deprive them of sleep. She sees it now as complicated manipulation through friendship. In Jeremy Hartwell's lawsuit against Love is Blind, he said that they implemented what was called night dating. "We didn't have clocks or anything, so it's hard to know exactly when it happened, but typically the night dates would last until about 2 a.m. He estimates that between getting back to his hotel room at 3 a.m. and being expected in the lobby at 7:15 a.m., he got 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night. On the challenge, cast members have reported being kept up until 3 or 4 a.m. and then forced into physically demanding tasks just a few hours later. On Love Island, lights in the villa stay on until producers decide it's time for bed, and contestants are often woken up abruptly for surprise challenges. The lights are on the entire time during Big Brother taping, even when the contestants are asleep. Interestingly enough, this is the same tactic that is used by the toughest maximum security prison in El Salvador. Privacy and sleeping with the lights off is considered a privilege.
The modules are kept lit all day and night for monitoring. When the sun goes down, the lights stay on all the time.
They are constantly being observed. I think this is one of the hardest things. When they try to sleep, they use their towels and cover their eyes to block the light.
And if all this manipulation, control, pushing contestants to their breaking point still isn't enough to make a good show, producers have one final weapon. They'll rewrite reality itself through a process known as frankenbiting. Frankenbiting is the editing technique reality TV producers use to reshape a contestant's words and actions into whatever storyline they want, even if it's not what actually happened. Editors take small clips of dialogue, sometimes even single words or reactions, and stitch them together to create entirely new sentences or emotional responses that never happened in real life. Now, a lot of the time, this seems to be completely innocuous. Like this clip from The Bachelor. The girl who says, "shut up," is spliced into the edit to make it look like she interrupted Corinne.
I know that I may not be everyone's favorite person. Shut up. And I feel like there's things going on behind my back or comments or whispers. And
in that moment in real life, when Corinne was talking, Jamie did not interrupt her and say, "shut up." That was taken from an entirely different moment out of context. And then the women who are shown laughing after Jamie says "shut up" was also clearly taken out of context. This happens so often in reality TV, and it's extremely clunky to watch. It often makes me wonder how people get so invested when you can see that things are manipulated even for the smallest reasons. However, sometimes situations situations are chopped up so much and narratives are so distorted that it's shameful producers got away with it. On season 1 of Joe Millionaire in 2003, Sarah Kozer was being portrayed as the bad girl. Producers set up a scene where Sarah and Evan go for a walk into the dark yard where the cameras cannot capture them. They took audio from Sarah getting a back massage from another female castmate hours before and then put it over a vague panning shot of the backyard and made it seem like she was giving Evan top in the woods.
They made it look like she gave him head in the woods.
But even when Sarah tried to go to the press after the show was over and convince everyone that the whole scene was taken out of context, people around the world were not convinced.
Let me take a couple of calls. All right, let's go to Randy. Randy, go ahead.
Hey, Howard, how are you?
Yeah.
Sarah, let me tell you something. You're making up this whole story about you were set up. You were in love with that guy. You were all over him. You went into the woods. We all heard the slurpy noise.
Right, you know what? I hate to break it to you. I just want you to entertain the possibility that perchance not everything you see on television is exactly
You didn't give him oral?
Let me tell you something. Hello? As soon as he didn't pick you and you heard he didn't have the money, you were devastated. You're nothing but a gold-digging white trash loser.
Although Sarah Kozer handled this scrutiny from the public with grace, others fell victim to the immense backlash. One of the darkest consequences of reality show editing is how quickly contestants become targets for obsessive, toxic fandoms, which has mostly been aimed towards people who have been labeled as villains on the show. And to some degree, you can't blame the fans. After all, they can only judge a contestant based on what they've seen on the show. But as we know, these shows are barely a reflection of who that person actually is. What makes it worse is these mass harassment campaigns often come from fans who believe they're acting on some kind of moral high ground. They'll flood a contestant's social media with hate, send death threats, and in some cases, dig up private information like addresses or family details. Olivia Atwood from Love Island UK opened up about receiving over 3,000 messages a day after her season aired, many of them telling her she didn't deserve to live. Another is Big Brother's Aaron Grease, who spoke about how viewers campaigned for her to lose her job after producers portrayed her as a manipulator through selective editing. But sometimes the harassment doesn't end with hateful comments. For some contestants, the public mauling and emotional toll have pushed them beyond their breaking point. A stat that absolutely blew my mind was that at least 40 people have died on their own volition after their appearances on reality TV. Hana Kimura, a female professional wrestler who was among the cast of the popular Japanese reality series Terrace House, died at age 22. She posted a goodbye message on social media after receiving a storm of hate online. Love Island had 2 contestants in back-to-back seasons suffer the same fate. Sophie Graydon, age 32 in 2018, and Mike Thalastis, age 26 in 2019. The Bachelor had 2 women from the same exact season pass, Alexa McAllister and Gia Allemond. What if I told you that the very first person who was ever voted off a reality show in history also suffered the same fate? Would that not be a slight indication of a broken system? In June 1997, Sinisa Savija became the first person in the world to ever be voted off a reality TV competition. The show was called Expedition Robinson. 4 weeks after he was voted off, he walked in front of a train. 9 weeks after that, the first episode of Expedition Robinson aired anyway. Before I started researching this video, I knew reality shows were pretty messed up, but I had no idea just how many tragic losses have been suffered from former contestants and the countless other attempts that have been made. And of course, this fate is never the result of just one thing. It's an incredibly complex and deep decision influenced by countless factors. But when reality shows follow the same formula again and again, calculated casting, 24/7 surveillance, isolating contestants, restricting their diet, flooding them with alcohol, depriving them of sleep, turning them essentially into controlled robots, and then putting all of their worst moments on display to millions of people, it's easy to see the inherent evil reality TV needs to have to create the entertainment. And with so many lives lost, it starts to make you wonder if this obviously broken system will ever change.
These islands.
Good night. Yeah, so I just went and watched the clip of the footage of why I'm banned on TikTok. And the show I was watching had a moment where on the television, there was porn playing on the television in the TV show I was watching. And so I'm banned from TikTok Live because the sound from my TV's TV. So. Apparently, I did have sexually explicit like, I don't understand that. It's so obvious that it's a fucking show. And there's nothing on the screen. It's just audio obviously from a TV show. It's so retarded. Well, anyway. Dude, it smells like someone is smoking a fucking cigarette right here. What's today's date? Well, I'm only banned for like a day or two. How long has it been since you blinked, Heather? exactly halfway done. Do I have it in me to keep going on this until I finish? I've only got like maybe 60 or so stitches left. So ironic to me that me, of all people, the least sexual person that I know, keeps getting fucking live fucking thingies for sexual explicit activity. It literally, the fucking irony is not lost on me. The irony is not lost on me.
I have the one and only 24 karat gold. Dogs can't lay eggs, but cat dogs can. Holy water infused creed Labubu. I don't know why they all get so annoyed at me. I am the owner of the world's first KSI Labubu. I really thought that racism was saying something bad about someone's race. Obviously because they are top celebrities and they're probably the biggest YouTubers out there. At the end of the day, TikTok is a platform for entertainment and to have a laugh. I have been a fan of the Sidemen for years and years, and I can't tell you how excited I was to pick up this KSI Labubu.
Her name is buzzing all over TikTok, and it's not for reasons as pretty as her face. Why did she make it black? This is what the old racist blackface dolls looked like.
Oh my
and what
god,
we can
people
call
are
it one of
fucking
the most-
reaching.
We're diving into a jaw-dropping $50 million lawsuit involving Elvis Presley's ex-wife, Priscilla Presley, and her former business partners. This case, it is packed with shocking allegations, including claims about the final days of her daughter, Lisa Marie Presley. Stick around, because this story is wild, it is personal, and it is full of a lot of twists. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. I don't know if you've been seeing this, but there is this feud apparently between Elvis Presley's ex-wife, Priscilla Presley, and her former business partners. And I will tell you, it has just morphed into a bombshell, full-blown $50 million lawsuit. I'm going to break down this whole complaint for you today, and I will tell you, my gosh, talking allegations, one of the major things the plaintiffs allege is that Priscilla pulled the plug on her sick daughter, Lisa Marie, who died in 2023 at the age of 54. Yeah, that comes up in this complaint. It is wild. It is shocking. Now, I will also give you my opinion at the end of all of this about what I think about this lawsuit, what may not come into a trial. We'll talk about it, but I'm not kidding. That is just part of this lawsuit, so let me lay it all out for you. So this lawsuit, this complaint, was filed in California State Court. Now, the plaintiffs, the people suing, are Bridget Cruz, Kevin Fialco, and an assortment of companies. And they're suing Priscilla Presley, Kia Morgan, and other unnamed does in this case. And you see that many times during the course of litigation. Sometimes they will, during the course of discovery, they'll find out who those people are. They may be added to the complaint. That's the purview of the plaintiffs. Anyway, so who's Cruz? Well, Cruz is described in the complaint as a well-known auctioneer who would sell coveted Elvis Presley memorabilia. Fialco is described as a Desert Storm veteran, an entrepreneur who apparently amassed a collection of Elvis memorabilia. More on them in a minute. Now, I need to lay out how this complaint starts because it is very personal. I think that's a fair way to describe this. Why? This is how it starts. Elvis Presley is the king of rock and roll. Defendant Priscilla Presley always wanted to be the queen. In fact, despite flaunting a public persona that only wanted to protect and keep her family together, Priscilla ultimately wanted one thing: power, no matter the cost. She did anything she could to control her image with the public. Yeah. So from there, the complaint alleges that there was this tumultuous relationship between Priscilla and her daughter, Lisa Marie. And what you're going to see is this is about money. Okay, that's the main allegation. This is about money. That after Elvis's death in 1977, the complaint says his estate was placed in trust for solely Lisa Marie. However, the plaintiffs allege that when Elvis's father, who is the trustee and executor of Elvis's estate, you know, the person who oversees and carries out the duties and functions of the trust, when he was on his deathbed, they allege Priscilla placed a lien on Elvis's property, Graceland, forcing her way to become co-executor, and she took over management of the trust. Well, you fast forward to when Lisa Marie turns 25 and she inherits the Elvis estate. They allege in this complaint that Priscilla was dependent upon Lisa Marie, that she, quote, clung to Lisa Marie, despite the accusation that she was resentful of her, that she envied her for always being in the spotlight. As I said, this is very personal here, and it's going to be interesting how they intend to prove that. Maybe comments she made, maybe text messages. Also, keep this in mind, I do wonder if it's relevant. We'll talk about that a little bit later. By the way, I know many of you might be true crime fans out there, but is anyone also in a business of some kind? If so, let me ask you something. Dollars, by the way, a revocable trust, meaning it can be changed, it can be altered. Now, we haven't even gotten, by the way, to the plaintiffs yet and their connection to the case. We will get to that. But the complaint alleges that Priscilla exploited the Presley name to fund her lifestyle, to live off of what Elvis Presley built. For example, they allege that she demanded $6.5 million in 2005 for personal gain in order to compete against Lisa Marie. Well, they allege that Priscilla entered into an agreement with Elvis Presley Enterprises, EPS, that is owned by the licensing juggernaut ABG, Authentic Brands Group. Now, EPE manages Elvis's IP, name, image, likeness. We'll get to all that in a minute. But this part is important. So in 2010, the complaint states that Lisa Marie ended up listing Priscilla and Barry Siegel, this is Priscilla's apparent longtime financial manager, as co-trustees of the trust that she set up, and executed a medical directive that she wanted her life to be prolonged as long as possible when making end-of-life decisions. That is important in a little bit when we talk about what happened to Lisa Marie, okay? So the plaintiffs claim that Lisa Marie found out that Priscilla and Siegel were allegedly mismanaging her finances, stealing money from her. So what does she end up doing according to this complaint? They say Lisa Marie amended the trust, remember, revocable trust, and made herself trustee, and she ended up listing her son Ben and daughter Riley, famous actress, you've probably seen her in a bunch of things, as successor trustees. Now, there's a little bit more background information, a little bit more detail. I'm not going to get into all that. It gets a little complicated. But there is an allegation that Priscilla burned through the money that she received, meaning the $6.5 million. And how by 2021, she was, quote, financially destitute, that she owed nearly $700,000 to the IRS. We don't know this for sure. Again, this is going to come out during the course of the litigation if it advances. But with all of that background, now we finally get to the plaintiffs, Cruz and Fialco. Remember, who are they? How is their connection here? So, they claim that Priscilla approached them, and she approached them to help her with her finances. The strategy was, and this is what it says, that they would, quote, work to exploit her name, image, and likeness, NIL, that Cruz Fialco deployed IP, know-how, and creative marketing to enhance Priscilla's brand. that Priscilla licensed her IP rights to a company that was set up by the plaintiffs that would manage all this, that would manage her IP rights, her name, image, and likeness, in order to accomplish this goal of helping her finances to build up her brand. And then it was also sub-licensed to these other companies. Gets a bit tricky, but you understand. It gets a bit technical, but you get the idea. And here's the key. They claim that Priscilla promised a few things in exchange. That she wouldn't compete with this strategy of exploiting her IP rights, that she would reveal to the plaintiffs other business opportunities that came along. The problem is, they claim, the plaintiffs, Priscilla never told them that she actually sold her IP rights already, her name, image, and likeness, years before, in 2005, to the company I mentioned before, Authentic Brands Group, that big licensing company, allegedly selling Presley and Graceland to ABG for $6.5 million. By the way, you know who would be an important witness at a potential trial? Riley. Why? Listen to this. Quote, when Cruz and Fialco learned about this prior deal, Priscilla repeatedly denied it until Priscilla's granddaughter, Riley Keough, shared the deal with Cruz and Fialco. Again, don't know if that's true, but Riley would probably be an important witness at an upcoming trial, or at least a deposition, right? Now, Cruz and Fialco allege, unbeknownst to them, this happened. And yet, at the same time, they're working incredibly hard to build up the value of Priscilla's brand. They claim they acted in PR functions, they drafted public statements for her, they were trying to grow her image and brand, that they were doing all of this at the expense of their own businesses, their other businesses. And they claim they invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into Priscilla. Now, let's talk about the Elvis movie. Did you see it? Remember that came out a few years ago, starred Austin Butler, huge hit? Well, I am just going to read you verbatim from this complaint about the movie, and then it leads into Lisa Marie's death. Okay.
People said that it was a
Lisa
Lisa
and
Marie
Priscilla
puff
were each
piece.
planning to attend the 2023 Golden Globes on January 10th, 2023 in support of Elvis. But Lisa had no desire to see or otherwise be near Priscilla. Lisa had been in a long-running dispute with Siegel, and she resented that Priscilla stayed with Siegel, further betraying her trust. Crucially, Priscilla was aware that Lisa was getting ready to remove her as the sole trustee of Lisa's irrevocable life insurance trust and was otherwise threatening to sue her. Cruz and Fialco, nevertheless, worked to keep the family together, working with Priscilla's publicist and arranging for Lisa and Priscilla to walk the red carpet together and sit next to one another at the event. Lisa was noticeably ill, complaining to Priscilla about her health. Priscilla ignored the warning signs despite being only a short drive from the world-renowned Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Instead, Priscilla clasped to the spotlight, going out to the Chateau Marmont for drinks with Lisa, and then sent Lisa on a long drive to her Calabasas home. Within just over 24 hours, Lisa suffered cardiac arrest on Thursday, January 12th, and she was rushed to West Hills Hospital. Priscilla, who knew that Lisa was in the process of taking steps to remove her as the sole trustee of Lisa's irrevocable life insurance trust, saw an opportunity to regain control. Priscilla rushed to West Hills Hospital, and despite Lisa's clear directive to prolong her life, remember I talked about that before, get this, quote, Priscilla pulled the plug within hours of Lisa being admitted, and before her granddaughter, Riley, was able to get to the hospital, demanding that Cruz issue a statement to the media so she could control the narrative. Priscilla demanded that a statement be released immediately, stating, "It is with a heavy heart that I must share the devastating news that my beautiful daughter, Lisa Marie, has left us." And then they claim that the following week, Priscilla allegedly said, "I'm the queen, I'm in charge of Graceland." Cruz and Fialco were heartbroken by the unsettling behavior. Wow. I know. So what happens next, according to the complaint? Well, they argue Priscilla wanted the money, and she went to the court and challenged the amendment to the trust. Remember the one that made Riley successor trustee? That Priscilla wanted control of the trust. She wanted control of Graceland, and that she allegedly directed Cruz and Fialco with brokering a deal with Riley. What was that apparent deal? Well, it included that Priscilla would be paid $2.4 million. They claim that ultimately the estate battle with Riley was resolved, but then Cruz claims he was contacted by defendant Kia Morgan, purported friend of Priscilla Presley, who apparently claimed that he was an attorney, even though they say that was false. They claim that Morgan was a person who was arrested in 2019 for allegedly committing elder abuse against all people. Stan Lee, the genius behind Marvel Comics. I know this is a wild roller coaster of allegations here. So they claim that Morgan says that he was represented by an attorney, and he claimed that they could help get Priscilla's name back from EPE, that company, the entity that controlled her name, image, and likeness. They claim that Morgan would make claims that he had these contacts with celebrities, that he would buy portions of their estate and use that as leverage to befriend these celebrities. And then there's an accusation that Morgan, again, who's a defendant in this case, that Morgan sent kind of a veiled threat, a text to Cruz saying, quote, "I have over 100 of the biggest VIP clients, billionaires in the world. It's a horrible idea to try and cross swords with me and attack me when I'm trying to help you. If I want to insult you or attack you, trust me, you'll know it in a very loud and profound way." And from there, Cruz and Fialco claim that Morgan and Priscilla initiated a smear campaign against them and spread all these kinds of lies. That Priscilla allegedly tried to undermine the name, image, and likeness rights she had negotiated with them, that she violated the contract with them, that she cut off contact with them, and basically tried to exploit her IP rights on her own without them. And that Cruz and Fialco are like, wait a second, we had already spent a substantial amount of our personal funds on product development for the companies that manage the IP rights. And then, I'll give you an example, there's this, quote, adding insult to injury, despite brokering additional compensation for Priscilla from A24 Pictures in connection with Sofia Coppola's Priscilla, then set to premiere at the Venice Film Festival in November 2023, Priscilla abruptly cut ties, disinviting Cruz and Fialco from the premiere. Instead, defendant Morgan posted an image of himself and Priscilla on a boat in Venice, Italy, on or around November 6, 2023, claiming he had been in Venice with Priscilla to promote the release of the then highly anticipated Priscilla. There's also an allegation that days later, NBC announced that Priscilla was going to be part of the production Christmas at Graceland, but she never told Cruz about it. Didn't even include Cruz or Fialco in the use of her name, image, or likeness in connection with this program. Okay, so that's the backstory. Those are the allegations. Now, what exactly are the plaintiffs suing for here? Multiple separate causes of action. I'm going to try to simplify it as best as possible. Count one, fraud in the inducement. So this basically means that Presley had
the cigarette
told
smells
Cruz
so
and Fialco
nasty.
that she owned the rights to use her name and image
Making
and
me have the
likeness,
sniffles.
but actually she had already sold those rights to someone else and didn't say so. And her representations, or maybe alleged misrepresentations, were made to get these people to invest money and help her financially. And because they believed her, they spent a lot of money helping her grow her brand. If they had known the truth, they wouldn't have done that. So now they're saying Presley's fraud cost them over $50 million, and they want to be paid. They want to be compensated, including extra punishment money, because they think she did it on purpose. Count two, common count goods and services rendered. So Presley had allegedly asked Cruz and Fialco to do a bunch of work for her, like dealing with all these legal issues about her family's estate, negotiating business deals. They did the work, but Presley allegedly hasn't paid them what they owed for these services. Count three, conversion. That Presley had access to a company bank account, but allegedly took money without anyone's permission, closed the account, and messed up the company's operations. And even though she was a member, she wasn't allowed to do that under the company rules. That's the allegation. She also allegedly ignored the agreed upon split of the money. So the company wants that money back and the damages for what they lost. Remember, some of the companies here are plaintiffs in this case. There's another one for conversion, same like count three, but for a different company called Recollections. So Presley, again, allegedly took money without permission against the company rules, ignored the agreed upon splits, and refused to return the money. And Recollections wants their money back and damages. Another count of conversion, again, like the other two, but this is for a company called Virtual Recollections, and Presley took, again, the allegation that Presley took funds that she wasn't allowed to, broke the rules, refused to return the money, and Virtual Recollections wants a judgment for damages and their funds. Count six, breach of the PPP operating agreement. So Presley apparently agreed to let this company, PPP, control and make money from her name, her image, her likeness, the one that was set up by the plaintiffs, promise not to do it on her own, but she allegedly did things without PPP, like skipping PPP on movie premieres and TV shows and public events and working with others to profit off of her name. So PPP, this company says she broke the contract, it hurt the business, they want money damages and a court order to stop her from doing this again without PPP. Count 7, breach of the PBPBK2 operating agreement. So Presley is apparently a part owner of this company with, again, these agreed upon money splits. She allegedly took money from the company's bank and endorsement deals without following the rules or getting approval. And the company says that she broke the contract.
Bro, she's a fucking money thief, like a hustler.
Breach of the recollections operating
What the
agreement. Similar to the
hell?
above, but again, for recollections, this company that Presley allegedly took money without following the agreed upon splits or permission. The company says she broke the contract, caused financial harm. Count 9, breach of the virtual recollections operating
Probably
agreement.
a
That,
drug
again,
addict.
Presley agreed not to compete with Virtual Recollections, another sub-licensee company of her rights, and to help them use her name, image, and likeness. But instead, the allegation is she did things like excluding them from events, cooperating with others, using her name without them. The allegation is she broke the contract, duties that were owed to them, caused harm.
Oh my
They
god,
wanted
I
to be
did it. Oh my
compensated.
god, I did it.
They
Oh my god, I did it.
to stop her from
Dudes.
continuing to do this. Count 10, breach of the Scylla endorsement agreement. So Presley was supposed to make sure that this company, Scylla Inc., had paid another sub-licensee company for using her IP rights, and instead, Presley allegedly got Scylla to pay her directly. And the allegation is this broke the contract, it hurt that sub-licensee company, they want damages and a court order. Count 11, intentional interference with the Scylla agreement. So, the allegation here is that this sub-licensee, this company that was managing her rights, had a contract with Scylla. Presley knew about it. Presley intentionally messed with this by getting Scylla to pay her directly, not the company. No good reason for this interference, and now the sub-licensee company claims damages. They ask for an injunction to stop Presley's interference. I know it's very complicated,
So
but again,
perfect.
kind of very similar to what we're talking about. Count 12, there's misappropriation of NIL, again, the name, image, and likeness rights. So this PPP company, again, they claim they had exclusive rights to Presley's IP rights, and her permission was required for commercial use. They claim Presley kind of went rogue, used her IP rights for paid events, merchandise, and more without the company's approval. They want damages, a court order, all that. Count 13, another misappropriation of her IP rights. This is with respect to virtual recollections. There is another count of 14, breach of disclosure agreement. So the allegation here is that Presley agreed to immediately tell Cruz in writing about any name, image, or likeness offers that she received, get Cruz's okay before signing any contracts. The allegation being that Presley didn't disclose certain deals, like the NBC deal, signed contracts without Cruz's approval. Cruz is claiming damages from this ongoing breach. Count 15, intentional interference with contractual relations. That Presley has contracts with the plaintiffs. Morgan knew about these contracts and allegedly spread lies about Cruz and Fialco to Presley. This caused Presley to breach her contracts, and plaintiffs say that Morgan's actions hurt them. They want damages, including punitive damages, to punish Morgan. Remember, Morgan's the defendant in this case. Count 16, intentional interference with prospective economic relations. So the idea here, plaintiffs had a likely profitable business relationship with Presley. Morgan allegedly knowingly interfered by spreading falsehoods to Presley, disrupting that relationship. Plaintiffs say that Morgan's actions caused them harm. They want damages. They want to deter this from happening. And in the end, what we're seeing here is a lawsuit for damages, attorney's fees, costs, expenses. Remember, $50 million lawsuit. Okay, by the way, one more thing I have to mention. Attached to this complaint towards the end, pieces of documentation, potential evidence, things like the Advanced Healthcare Directive from Lisa Marie Presley, a signed memorandum of understanding between Priscilla and the plaintiffs in this case. There are text messages. My take. Okay, look, these are allegations. They are detailed. There is at least some supporting documentation at the start of this. There are many causes of action, which, kind of puts it on the defendant, Priscilla Morgan, to fight. But with so many allegations, you can also make the argument it shows a pattern, and that can help in a case like this. Now, there would be extensive discovery revolving multiple companies, communications, key witnesses like Riley
She's
Keough.
done.
And if the plaintiffs can show that the money they invested in Priscilla, what they lost, what their harm is, that is key. Now, I will tell you, there are certain issues to this lawsuit that I see from the beginning. Don't know the full context, but I do wonder how much all of this backstory with Lisa Marie is relevant. Sure, there's a part of it where they played a role in rebuilding the relationship between Priscilla and Lisa Marie and trying to make sure it looked okay for the public's perspective. But I do wonder, this whole separate issue about Lisa Marie's death, it's major. That is a whole other avenue on how to explore, and whether the judge would even allow that portion of the story into the trial. There could be an argument that it is way too prejudicial, that it is not relevant to the actual legal claims that they are suing for. Because you would wonder, are they really in a position to sue in connection with Lisa Marie's death per se? No, it's not like a wrongful death action, but you do wonder how that affects them. They talk about them being devastated. There's no emotional distress claim, but you can make the argument it's relevant because it goes into the work that they were doing for Priscilla when it came to Lisa Marie. But I just wonder if a judge is gonna say it's too irrelevant, it's too prejudicial to the jury, I'm not allowing it in. Not sure it would work. By the way, there's also other issues. There's the issue of proving Morgan's alleged role. That could be a little bit more difficult than Priscilla. Whether Morgan interfered, how Morgan allegedly interfered. There's also the damages calculation. So there's a lot to be thinking about at the onset of this case. But I'll tell you, look, if this doesn't settle, this is going to move forward with motions, discovery on the financials, the communications, the trust documents, depositions. And you got to wonder, just the mere act of filing this lawsuit, it's now all in the news, making these allegations. Ironically, if this is a case about Priscilla's PR, her public image, how to restore it, this is not something she needed. Okay, I'll tell you that much. But we'll continue to follow it, see where it goes. That's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.
I questioned Jeff, and his reply was, "How dare you question your God?"
What Jeff and Shalia do, it's control. That is how one former follower described the leaders of Twin Flames Universe, an online group now at the center of a sweeping investigation. Accused of coercion, financial exploitation, and spiritual manipulation, these self-declared spiritual gurus are facing potentially serious legal heat. We are going to break it all down right now. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. Jesse Weber.
You want me to feed you?
Hey everybody, this is another long crime legal alert. If you receive Depo-Provera birth control shots or were later diagnosed with a brain or spinal tumor called meningioma, you may be eligible for a lawsuit. That's right, Morgan & Morgan is investigating claims that patients were improperly warned about this risk. It's free to check, just takes a few minutes, and you don't pay unless they win. So scan the QR code on screen, click the link below, or go to forthepeople.com/LCDepo to see if you qualify. Well, things are certainly heating up in Michigan, where state and federal authorities have launched a sweeping investigation into a controversial online group that is accused of manipulating its members. The target? It's Twin Flames Universe, or TFU. This is this online spiritual community that claims to...
Money, are you hungry?
People find their
Come on.
ultimate
Are you
romantic
hungry?
partner,
Come get it.
soulmate. But behind the promises of love, divine
Money, right here.
connection,
There are disturbing allegations of coercion, financial exploitation, and identity manipulation. Allegations. Be clear, allegations. Now, the investigation was sparked in part by Netflix's explosive docuseries, Escaping Twin Flames, which exposed how group founders Jeff and Shalia Devine allegedly convinced followers to sever ties with family, shell out tens of thousands of dollars for coaching programs, and in some cases, undergo gender transitions, not out of personal conviction, but conform to the group's rigid spiritual framework. That was the main narrative, or alleged narrative, of this show. And just here's a chilling excerpt from the documentary.
What Jeff and Shalia do has nothing to do with love. It's control.
I questioned Jeff, and his reply was, "How dare you question your God?"
Image of Christ was actually me, the second coming, not Jesus, the first coming. It's insane what I asked of you, for you to have my divine light.
Now, if you haven't seen Escaping Twin Flames, it's streaming now on Netflix. It is a wild, wild ride. But now, Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel announced a formal probe into TFU. In a major development, search warrants were executed at multiple properties linked to the group as part of a coordinated effort involving both state and federal agencies. In a Facebook announcement, Nessel gave an update on the investigation, stating this.
Today, my office, along with local law enforcement, the Michigan State Police, and the U.S. Department of Labor Office of Inspector General executed search warrants on 2 residences as part of our investigation into Twin Flames Universe. Twin Flames is a largely online organization with leaders based in Leelanau County, Michigan, that allegedly uses coercive control over its members, both in Michigan and across the United States. We believe that many of their actions may have been illegal, and we're asking for the general public's help in this investigation. Anyone with information about potential criminal conduct regarding Twin Flames Universe, its operators, Jeff and Shalia Devine, Christine and Jason Emmerich, its related organizations, including the Church of Union and the Mind Alignment Process, or their members, are encouraged to contact my office and may do so anonymously.
So investigators on the ground included special agents from the Michigan Department of Attorney General, U.S. Department of Labor's Office of Inspector General, Michigan State Police, and deputies from different county sheriff's offices. So I want to invite on right now 2 special guests to help me break all this down. First, we got with us Gene Rossi, former federal prosecutor, criminal defense attorney, and Rick Ross, cult expert, founder of the Cult Education Institute, and author of Cults Inside Out, How People Get In and Can Get Out. All right, so let's talk about it. Great to have you both here. Gene, why are all these agencies working together?
Oh, very simple. And I'm surprised the Federal Bureau of Investigation is not involved.
Money move.
The allegation, and I'm sure that's the allegation in the affidavits for the search warrants, and Rick can probably add on to this, is probably mail and wire fraud. They're arguing that there's a scheme to defraud people with a bait and switch. You join this
fucking retarded
Twin Flames universe, if you will, and I'm going to make your life better. I'm going to find you a partner. You're going to get spiritual support, yada, yada, yada. And the fraud, wire, and mail
don't want to cut the string.
Probably when they get in the door, everything's different. You have to contribute, you have to give money, you have to do chores, you have to conform your life. And I was thinking about this about 10 minutes ago. Rick probably is very familiar with this. In November of 1978, in Guyana,
some kind of fucking sick
Jim
joke.
Jones had a cult. And hundreds of people literally, I'm not being facetious,
how in the cock do I get my shit out of here?
Poisonous and died. And a cult is something that draws people in, it consumes your life. And, you know, one person's cult is another's religion, so that would be their argument. But this is a massive investigation. I am surprised that the FBI is not involved.
Well, before I go to Rick, real quick,
Dude,
so at this
seriously?
point,
Can I
it's
just, like, have
unclear
my-
what exactly
Oh my God.
was seized during the
Why do you
searches
wanna
and which
make me so
specific
mad?
crimes
Why are you
are
trying
being
to make me
investigated.
angry?
But we know that a judge found
I'm gonna
probable
fucking book out
cause
on you.
to issue those warrants. That is significant,
This is
right?
so
That means
fucking
something. There has to
retarded.
be some
I'm so angry right now.
indicia. There has to be some
Irrationally so.
basis here. There has to be something that they might be looking into, right?
Well, when you get a search warrant from a judge, you have to establish probable cause that a crime has been committed. And probable cause is about 40% certainty. Preponderance is 51%. Beyond reasonable doubt, it's like 90%. But probable cause is 40% certainty. So they persuaded a jurist for these search warrants, I don't know the exact number, that their crime has been committed and that the location that they want to search and seize documents from is connected to that crime. So that's what they've proven with their affidavits. And I'm sure the affidavit is probably 70 to 100 pages long. And it could be just wire and mail fraud. Those are your bread and butter. It could be identity theft. It could be a host of money laundering. It could be a lot of things that we're not aware of right now. But you're right. Getting search warrants is a huge deal, and what they seized is probably massive. Documents, objects, things like that. And it's going to take time for them to review the search warrant material.
And we're going to get into what might be going on here. But Rick, over to you. How would you classify Twin Flames universe based on what we know? Would you consider it a cult? Would you consider it a high control?
You're doing
group?
it again.
Consider it something else?
You're doing it again.
I would consider it, in my opinion, a destructive cult. I think that Jeff Devine and his wife, Shalea Devine, are charismatic leaders that have become an object of worship, and that they use coercive control to manipulate and exploit their followers. And based on the complaints about the group, it is a destructive group. People have been hurt very badly. Families have been hurt very badly. And the Devines live in a mansion. That's where they were raided in Michigan. So they have profited enormously from this online group. And what's interesting about it is what we're seeing is typical of what's going on today, which is people are recruited through social media platforms. They follow cult leaders on Twitter, on Facebook. They are indoctrinated through videos on YouTube, and they transfer money through Venmo and PayPal. So you can be a cult leader and work your cult remotely from your mansion in Michigan. And so I would think in the raid that has occurred, they're after the hard drives, they're after all the evidence to show the trail of exploitation that